A second major category of why forgiveness isn't applied at the time of the offense is when we know it's sin, but we're unwilling or unable to let go of the anger and pain. Say adultery, perhaps. Our spouse has clearly sinned. We can see that, but we just can't let go of the anger and the desire for revenge. We hold on to the feeling, you owe me. You've humiliated me, and I want to hurt you back. It feels like your spouse owes you $1 million. And actually they do. But whenever we hold on to forgiveness long term, we're not grasping that God has given us $1 billion, $1 trillion bank account, and we can afford to lose $1 million. We can afford to forgive. That $1 billion bank account isn't emotionally real to us, so we store up the pain and anger and unforgiveness and lock it away. Or maybe it's a sin we've done, like abusing our own children. We punish ourselves for a while or even a lifetime with that stored up pain and anger and unforgiveness toward ourselves. We despise ourselves because we thought we were stronger than that, and we thought we'd never do to our kids what had been done to us. The sacrifice of Jesus is not emotionally real to us. We can't see it. We can't imagine that God could forgive even that. So we store it away. But every time something reminds us of the times we traumatized our child, we feel worthless because we define ourselves by our sin. There's a third kind of category, major category of why forgiveness isn't applied either at the time of the offense or later, and that's because we misunderstand forgiveness itself. I think there are two main kinds of misunderstandings. First, we think forgiveness is excusing. He's just having a bad day, or he was abused himself. Forgiveness is not excusing, because there's no excuse for sin. There may be reasons for sin, and most of the times there are, but there are no excuses. But that concept is prevalent in our psychologized society. The point here is not to make ourselves the victims of our parents' sin or someone else's sin and never take responsibility for ourselves. The point is to hold them accountable, at least in our own thinking, and then go on to forgive them, to cancel their debt of $1 million, and to trust God with the injustice that's been perpetrated against us. We need to see every situation as God sees it. Obviously, we'll do that imperfectly, but with great humility and much prayer for wisdom. We must examine the sins of our parents. We have a much higher chance of repeating the sins of our parents if we do not develop enough objectivity to say, my parents sinned against me. My mother should have spent more one-on-one time with me. She should have asked me more questions about my life. She should have been less concerned about what her friends at church felt and more concerned about what I felt. The alternative to that kind of objectivity is to continue at a core level to feel like something's wrong with me, to believe our subjective feelings, which in that sort of case were formed by neglect, not by love. The sin of a parent naturally creates shame in a child. It's a natural response to repeated sin, patterns of sin, for a child to internalize negative messages about the self. And we act out our self-image. If we feel shameful, we'll do shameful things. If we feel valuable and positive, we'll do valuable, positive things. Now, a second misunderstanding of forgiveness is we think we can forgive without really feeling the pain of the sin against us. Did God do that? No. The cross was God in Jesus feeling all the pain of all the sin against him. He didn't say, okay, I forgive them, just as an act of the will. He felt every last bit of pain on the cross. And that is what's required of us, to feel every last bit of pain that we need to feel because of the sin against us. We must feel in our bodies, minds, and spirits the pain of others' sins against us. And that's the great challenge, to both feel the pain and let go of the anger. Only God really gives us the grace to do that process. So if shame is a natural reaction to others' sin against us, then our forgiveness is a supernatural reaction to serious sin. So we must recognize sin as sin, both against others against us and ours against ourselves. We must be willing in obedience to forgive, to engage in that process. We mustn't excuse sin. We must really remember before we can really forget, really feel the pain of the sin before we can really let it go.